It is the first day of November, and so today someone will die. And thus begins The Scorpio Races, a book about people living on an island with carnivorous horses who have an annual race where they have a carnivorous horse race every year. This book also has a food called November cakes, and the author, Maggie Stiefvater, actually created a recipe for November cakes, and I'm going to be trying out that recipe. But first, I want to read you the passage about November cakes so you understand why these sound so amazing. There's actually several passages. I looked it up. November cakes is mentioned 11 times throughout this book. "Is that what they told you?" Finn exclaims. I stare at him. "Who is this person who can make Finn so loud so quickly?" "It is," Holly says warmly. He inclined his head towards Finn and asks, "Now what exactly is a November cake?" He asks it with such genuine curiosity that of course Finn has to speak even more, describing the moist crumb, the nectar that seeps from the base of it, the icing that soaks into the cake before you can lick it off. It is probably the kindest thing I have ever seen in my life. George Holly asking my brother about baked goods. Let me know in the comments if you have ever made a recipe from a book and what recipe that was, what book it was from, and if you would be brave enough to ride a flesh-eating water horse in a horse race. Now we're gonna try those baked goods, so meet me in the kitchen where I will be making November cakes and talking about the Scorpio races throughout. I am using the November cakes recipe from Maggie Stiefvater's website. I have that pulled up here. This is the second version of the recipe. She has a link to like the first version of the recipe, but I couldn't find it and she claims this one's better anyway, so this is the one we're making. In the recipe instructions, she talks about using a standing mixer and how she can't imagine why someone wouldn't have one of these because they are so dead useful. And I'm going to read it charitably and assume that she is being funny and maybe a little bit informative, talking about how much they help her in the kitchen. But I just want to acknowledge I can think of very many reasons someone would not have a standing mixer. And I probably wouldn't have one unless it was gifted to me. I also only have the whisk attachment and the standard attachment, which for this recipe, I'm supposed to be using the bread attachment. I have a standing mixer. I just don't have the correct attachment for it. So for this recipe, I will be mixing it by hand in a bowl. Here we have our milk, water, oil, and butter. And I don't think I've ever microwaved oil like this before, but that's what we're supposed to do. So we'll see how it goes. In the meantime, I am supposed to add 1.5 cups flour. While I get the ingredients ready, I can talk more about the Scorpio Races book. We are following two perspectives in this book. We are following Kate Connolly, or her nickname is Puck, as she's known around the island, and Sean Kendrick. And both of them have had their parents killed by these water horses, which are called Capoeira in the story. But both of them in this book are racing in the Scorpio Races, which is the Capoeira race, or the flesh-eating water horse race. They're racing for very different reasons. Sean Kendrick, after his parents were killed in the water horse race in the Scorpio Races, he works for the richest man on the island as a stable hand who trains the water horses in preparation for the Scorpio Races every year. And Sean is very familiar with the horses, and he has won 4 of the last 6 Scorpio Races. Kate's reason for racing is a little bit different. Her reasons for racing change throughout the course of the story. So whenever she first decides to race in the Scorpio Races, it's kind of for selfish reasons, but she feels like her family's falling apart and she has to do something about it. And then as the story progresses, her reason for participating in the Scorpio Races continues to change. And Sean's kind of mirrors that. He races because he always races, but throughout the book, he also gets additional reasons to be in the races. Here is our milk, oil, butter, and water. I say that turned out pretty well. We're supposed to add 2 eggs to this and then put it in our dry ingredients. One egg. Two eggs. And it did not say to mix them together, but I'm gonna mix them together anyway because I'm used to like whisking eggs. So it just kind of makes sense for me to like whisk this a bit. So add liquid, stir thoroughly, then add remaining 2 cups of flour, 1 cup at a time, stirring between each addition. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that. I could have started this in the mixer with the standard mixing thing, but I decided not to. So we're gonna do it all by hand. This is a little bit warm. Doesn't feel too hot that it's gonna kill the yeast, so I think we're fine. We don't want to kill off our hardworking yeast here. Okay, so we're supposed to mix this thoroughly. The Scorpio Races is very much a slow burn story in every aspect of the story. Yes, we have 2 perspectives and they do become love interests, but for the first half of the book, they barely interact with each other. And it is very much a slow burn subplot of a romance. And in the plot itself, like the entire story is a slow burn story. I think it's a very character-driven story. We have the character decisions being what really drives the story and what increases the stakes slowly over time. And it's slow burn in basically every aspect. We never feel like that there is some plot element that comes out of nowhere and overrides the character decisions. Everything feels very organic and just slowly increasing the atmosphere and tension leading up to the Scorpio Races. It smells really good. This is super sticky though. Like I can't really knead this. Is it only 3.5 cups of flour? This doesn't seem right. Because we're supposed to be able to roll this out. This doesn't seem like there's enough flour in here to be able to roll this out. You see what I mean? I don't know what went wrong here. But we're gonna add more flour because this is not a consistency that I can even think about rolling out anywhere. We could start with like 1/2 cup more. Because I'm assuming it's supposed to be like somewhat bread-like. Even if it's a little sticky for bread. I could have just made a major mistake and now I'm messing up the entire recipe. But I guess we'll find out. This is super sticky still. Oh my gosh. I'm gonna add more flour. I've never made a recipe that I felt like was this off. But now I'm worried that like I'm making it wrong. Honestly, I'm really impressed because I'm pretty sure she like made up this recipe on her own. And I think that is super impressive. Because I bake a fair amount, but I don't make my own recipes. I'm just now wondering if the measurements are correct. Okay, this is feeling better, I think. I did not expect this video to go this way. The physical copy of the book that I have from the library does not have a recipe in it at all for November cakes. I did download the ebook version and it does have a recipe in the back of the ebook version, and it is the exact same recipe that I'm following from Maggie Stiefvater's blog. So hopefully this works. I did add extra flour, so we'll see. Also, that is my oven preheating. It says in the recipe to preheat the oven to 100 degrees and then turn it off and put the dough in the oven for an hour. I believe that's called proofing, typically, whenever you do that for bread. The problem is my oven, it is digital and I can only turn it down to 170 degrees. So this is going splendid. I turned it on bake and then I'm gonna turn it all the way down and it's only gonna go down to 170. 70, look, it stopped and I can't make it go any lower. Ah! So on top of all of my freaking out, I did actually decide to change the recipe before I even started making it because the filling is butter and orange extract and you only need a 1/4 teaspoon of orange extract and I don't have any and I don't want to buy any to only use a 1/4 teaspoon and then have it sit in my cupboard for years, me not using it because I don't really make anything else with orange extract. So I looked up alternatives and it said I can use orange peel, which I am going to do that now. I'm going to zest this orange and then put that in with melted butter and use that as my filling. So here's our filling, our melted butter and orange zest, which is probably zestier than it needs to be, but orange zest is something you measure with your heart. It has now been an hour and oh my gosh, that is almost overflowing. It's definitely ready to come out. This seems like so much dough, but we're going to flour the counter here and roll it out. Getting back to the Scorpio Races, I feel like this is a book that can be described as an atmospheric book, and I'm not someone who's typically drawn to atmospheric reads, but it really feels like you are on this island. There's almost this beautiful bleakness. And this book is set in October, November. It's definitely fall. It's getting very cold. And there's sometimes storms. And the Kapoishka, or these water horses, come on land during the storms and will seek out food or things to eat. They will kill animals and or people that get in their way, that cross their path. So our main characters both really love the island and love the horses, but there's almost this like deep respect for nature and how vicious it can be. So there we go. I think that's plenty big enough. Now we spoon our orange and butter. This almost doesn't seem like enough. I kind of want to make more of this. I feel like I'm already doing everything wrong. So I'm going to continue doing things wrong. I'm going to make more filling. That seems like barely enough. But I probably rolled this out too big. I feel like I was going to make more than 12 rolls, but I also added more flour than I was supposed to. So I made some more filling, and the filling is just melted butter and orange zest, which the recipe calls for orange extract. At this point, I feel like I am changing enough stuff that, like, are these the November cakes they had in the Scorpio Races? Probably not. Probably not. Okay, now the outside is very floury. I wonder if I should be like brushing off the flour as I'm rolling this up. I already prepared and greased the muffin sheet. So I was supposed to cut this into 12. Oh, wait, so let's say that's half, and then half again, and half again. So I'd have to cut this into thirds. Okay, there is, I don't know if you can see this, little November cake. I'm gonna put it in the muffin sheet. here are the November cakes. It did say in the recipe that they would be slimy but delicious, and I would definitely say they're slimy. Hopefully they're delicious. I expect them to be. They're basically just butter and sugar, so I don't expect them to be good for me, but you know, I expect them to taste good. Okay, I am trying to prep the glaze, and we're putting more sugar, brown sugar. We're also supposed to put honey, whipping cream, vanilla extract, and an entire stick of butter. And I don't think I can do it. Do you know how much fat and sugar is in this? There is so much butter and sugar, and it's only 12 of them. But okay, it's a treat. It's a treat. I'm not making these all the time. It's fine. I feel like I'm making something that would be good to take on a hike when you're burning a lot of energy, which is probably why it's good in the story, because, you know, they're always out, very active. So it's probably good for something like that and not for like, I'm sitting around reading this weekend. They do smell absolutely delicious. Look at them. Okay, we're gonna pull them out of the oven now, and I need my hot mat for that. So I'll be back. Okay, so while our November cakes are cooling, we are going to make the glaze that goes on top. And no, I did not put all of the butter in. So this is honey, half a stick of butter, brown sugar, and whipping cream. I'm supposed to heat this until it basically boils, and I'm supposed to let it do that for like 2 minutes, and then put it on top of our November cakes. While our topping is boiling, I want to go back to talking about the Scorpio Races. The Scorpio Races is very much a horse book. It's literally about horses. It is about the bond our main characters have with their horses and the respect that they have for their horses. But I have a confession to make. I'm not really a horse person. So I think this book is enjoyable whether or not you're a horse person, because I enjoyed this book and I'm not a horse person. But I can understand the bond someone can have with a creature, with a pet, with an animal. And because I can understand that bond, I don't have to be a horse person to love this book. And I definitely think this book works for you, whether or not you're really big into horses. There you have it. Gooey, honey, butter, orange November cakes. I feel like I have to try it now, right? I have to know what it tastes like. Look how good this looks. How like yummy. I'm sure it's going to taste delicious. Yeah, let's try it. Could be more orange. Very good. Very honey buttery. Very honey buttery. Just the barest hint of orange. I think it could be more orange. Very good though. Yeah. Yum. So you see how the bottom part almost doesn't have glaze on it, and it's just like the top part that's covered in glaze? I think the honey glaze flavor is too strong, because I actually like eating the bottom part because it's just like a sweetbread with orange, and I feel like the orange flavor comes through better. But when you're eating it with the top part, the honey glaze flavor overpowers the orange. But maybe that's just me who likes orange a lot. I hope you enjoyed this video. This is very different from what I usually publish on my channel, but I really wanted to try the recipe November cakes and talk about the book Scorpio Races, particularly as I'm reading it in October, November, whenever the Scorpio Race book takes place. So hopefully you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments if you did, and I hope to see you in another video. Happy reading.